In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Edwards. Joining us today is Seth Blaustein, the founder and CEO of the Dollar Donation Club. Seth, thanks for being with us today.
Glad to be here, man.
So tell us, we were just talking a little bit before the show about this grand vision.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's contributing $1 a month to take on some of the world's biggest challenges. Let's start at the beginning. Where does this idea come from?
Well, my background originally, I'm a filmmaker, and I'd always saw storytelling as a powerful tool for changing people's perceptions and realizing the world as we know it is the perceptions that come from the stories we tell ourselves. So I got into social impact storytelling and helping to find brands and campaigns that needed good storytelling to help that, get that out to the world. Back in 2016, I had a video go viral about a particular social impact campaign at the time. Got about 28 million views, and it drove $1 million in donations. That's when I was like, holy crap, 28 million people viewed this. Imagine if those 28 million people had unified together giving just $1. And this would obviously produce a large sum of money, and it wouldn't put any financial strain on any one person. So that idea of I couldn't shake it. I think it's an idea that like every 12-year-old has probably had at some point, is how do I get the world to give $1, but not give me $1, but how do we get the world to give $1 together to the most deserving, proven, measurable, and scalable social impact initiatives. So that was sort of the initial kernel of the idea. That led me to really studying the philanthropic space, a lot of the problems with it, why it's been stuck at 2% GDP for 40 years. And then a few months later, I was hired to produce a conference for a nonprofit organization in Austin, where I live. And during the event, one of the speakers, in her rush to get to her talk, she was running late, she left her backpack in front of the venue, and it rolled off the curb and got run over by a car with her laptop in it.
Yeah, that's not fun.
And so I'm backstage, and a volunteer hands me this mangled, twitching laptop, and I'm thinking, how am I going to break the news to her that her laptop has been broken? But at a conference, you're producing, you're in flow, you're kind of on your toes. And so I had a quick idea, and within 5 minutes before she finished her talk, we pulled together a little crowdfunding experiment. So when she got off stage, we jumped up on stage holding her laptop and said, can we get everyone's attention for a moment? This is Betty's laptop. It just got run over by a car, right? Everyone's attention locks in the stage. He said, we all know what that would feel like if this was your laptop, right? There's groans in the room. Everybody's like, oh yeah, that's the worst. And we said, it's interesting. There's hundreds of us in the room right now. And if everyone here gave just $1, we could buy Betty a new laptop without putting any financial burden on any one person. So what do we have to lose? Let's try it, right? And you don't need to give more than $1. So suddenly, 2 projector screens at the conference, one popped up a Venmo QR code, another one a QR code for PayPal. We said, point your camera here for PayPal, nice. Here for Venmo. Don't give more than $1. You don't need to. Within an hour, we'd raised over $1,200 doing that. And I was stunned that it worked as well as it did. And if you look at the way people donated, everybody donated at the event because it was just $1 we were asking for. But when they got there, when they got to the checkout page, they thought, why wouldn't I give $2 or $4 or $6 or $8? So there's a lot of these kind of sub $20 donations. A lot of people did give $1. And then one person gave $500. And when I sort of had a chance to debrief on that experience and really decode what happened, I realized this is a pretty good microcosm of the world, right? A lot of people can really give $1. That's easy for many people, especially in the Western world. And then people can sort of self-opt into what their version of $1 might be, what feels like a small commitment. It's not going to put any real financial burden on you, but can go into this collective pool. And then there's, of course, always the $500 person somewhere, right? A Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk who their version of $1 is substantially larger. But the real principle is this idea of collective micro giving that's focused, right? So no financial strain on any one person at that conference. And yet, as a whole, within an hour, we're able to direct resources to solve a problem, which, given it's just a broken laptop, it's spilled milk compared to global issues we're facing. But why not apply that same mentality that same network unity is what I call it, principle to global challenges that we really do need to solve. And, the global broken laptop, so to speak. And so that's where really Dollar Donation Club was born, from this idea of creating the world's first collective super philanthropist made of millions of everyday people just giving $1 a month, and that going to highly curated, highly vetted social impact initiatives that have been proven, that are measurable, that are scalable, and can actually move the needle on solving some of our gnarliest challenges that we're facing globally right now.
I love that. The world is a broken laptop. It's a nice microcosm story of this, but is that how you have to compete in this industry? I mean, is it storytelling? I mean, there are so many nonprofits out there that we even work with. $1 here for a tree, and those are the best that work, right? It's simple. People get it. It's only $1. So in that instance, you have a laptop, you built the emotional connection, and you have people in a room. But when it comes to storytelling, which you so love, what do you feel your strengths are, and how do you paint that picture to billions of people around the world?
Well, I think particularly, I'll speak sort of towards what I hope to be the future of philanthropy more is bringing the innovation of the for-profit space into the philanthropic space and into the social impact space. And ultimately, recognizing that every customer for a for-profit, right, is on their own hero's journey, and you're simply helping them achieve their own goals, right? Whether you're selling them an article of clothing or a seminar, or they're reading a magazine, you're helping them achieve more of them who they aspire to be. More than ever, there's a large population of people who deeply care about making an impact in the world. And whereas many platforms are focused on helping charities raise more money, we're not actually. We're focused on helping donors achieve more impact per dollar. So that really does come down to clear storytelling about what are the problems, what are the real solutions that are actually out there that can solve those problems, and that are also the most efficient, that are going to use that dollar as effectively as possible and transparently as possible. And then our job is to amplify that story, to find those underdog leaders, whether it's Mary Crowley from Ocean Voyages Institute, it's one of the campaigns we're running right now, broke the world record for the largest mid-ocean plastic cleanup in history in 2020, and is aiming to break that record again in 2021. That's one of our campaigns, to find those leaders. These are the real leaders.
Straight up.
Right? And tell their story. Because often, and this is where my background running a creative agency for social impact initiatives, there's a lot of this archetype of the leader who's sort of hidden away in their garage, just doing great work, but doesn't seem to care about telling their story, doesn't care about PR. They care about the work. Right. These are the unsung heroes usually, and there's many of them throughout the social impact space. They don't have good PR. They don't have good marketing budgets, but they're, by the numbers, they're some of the best that are out there, and they're competing against larger nonprofits who are just outperforming them on storytelling. So our goal is to find those leaders, tell their story, and show the world the great work that they're doing, and to have them participate and actually helping see them reach their full potential so they can do the most good possible for the world.
Do you find and I truly believe that as well, let's not discount the good work that people are doing. I want to talk to you about also, the synergies between these people that you deal with. I mean, you got someone that's cleaning up ocean plastic. I mean, what caused them to do that? What I'm interested in right now is this. You said 2% of the GDP in the world.
Yeah.
So I heard there's like a $2 trillion funding gap to solve the problems that we need. When you have 1 billion people and $1 billion, how do you determine where you allocate that money to?
Yeah. So this is really, I think, the ultimate problem to solve globally. Is it's sort of like, this isn't a perfect analogy, but some people focus on, we have overpopulation is going to become an issue when we actually produce twice as much food globally as we need. It's simply not being distributed appropriately, and there's a lot of waste. So we actually have an organizational problem, almost as a species, you could say, right now, where we have a lot of byproduct waste, things that are polluting the ecosystem. And we're one of the only species really on the planet that is out of harmony with the broader ecosystems of the planet, right? Most species, one species waste is another species food or fertilizer, right? But if you kind of zoom out to space and you look at humanity, it's almost like, what is this species that kind of excretes this plastic stuff and this, all these other byproducts? And sometimes they spill chemicals everywhere, and it's like they're kind of destroying a lot of things around them. And so I think on a broader level, it is about coming back into some sort of regenerative harmony with the ecosystem of the planet. Now, that's a very meta starting point to answer your question. I'll get a little bit more specific. True, yeah. But what we have to figure out as a species is, how do we orchestrate the right resources to the right place at the right time to solve the problems that are needed to be solved, whether it's climate change, ocean plastic pollution, hunger, poverty, human trafficking, right? Of the thousands of nonprofits who might be cleaning up ocean plastic, who are the top 3 that are the most effective, proven, measurable, and scalable, and who still need funding to reach their full potential, right? Because in the philanthropic space, I think right now we have a choice overload problem. There's so many choices. At one point, there were more Save the Black Rhino nonprofits than black rhinos in the world, if that's sort of illustrates it. So we have this issue where we're slow dripping resources to thousands of nonprofits at the same time, and no one is really getting funded up to their full potential. So what we're doing, we operate almost like an investment firm would think, but for donations, where we're looking, instead of at ROI, we're looking at ROD, return on donation, right? Who are the best investments or donation vehicles for achieving a certain measurable outcome? Removing ocean plastic, planting trees in ways that last a long time and have a lot of cascading benefits. So we kind of call these, what we look for, acupuncture points of change.
Okay.
And it's kind of, where can you apply your resources where you'll solve a problem, but you'll trigger a cascade of additional downline benefits for many years to come. And that's what our vetting process looks at. And so it takes about 6 to 12 weeks for us to vet an organization, because we're not interested in just platforming every nonprofit out there. We're very interested in finding the very best in particular verticals that have the highest return on donation within a holistic and regenerative set of principles. So we call it the integrated impact score. I know this is kind of a fire hose, but it's the answer to your question. It's our own vetting process that we developed with world-renowned researchers, innovators, and scientists. People like Tom Chi, a co-founder of Google X, or Chad Frischman from Project Drawdown. It takes a while for us to go through it. It's a 7 sort of section score, looks at things that everybody's used to looking at, like, are they transparent? What's their overhead? These basic things. But it also looks at things like, what's the risk of unintended negative consequences of donating to this? This happens when we donate to certain initiatives. Sometimes something goes wrong. It might put an economy out in a region where you're donating. And so we really look at, how do we de-risk the total positive benefit, how do we de-risk where the money is going to create the total positive benefit while triggering an additional cascade of further benefits that go beyond just your initial investment. So that's what we look for. It takes a while to vet. It's a minimum 6 weeks, but it results in us finding the most mature, proven, measurable, and scalable organizations that you can feel really, really confident about giving, even if it's just $1 a month to, that it's going to create a measurable outcome that's powerful.
Okay. So just so I have this right, if it's a tree planting organization, you're doing all the research for, because you obviously don't have too many Black Rhino projects. So you're doing the research to see which ones are verifiable.
Yes.
And then you help raise money for them with their platform.
Yes.
And then do you tell their story afterward?
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. Is, through the vetting process, we really get to know them, and we get to understand why they're so effective. And during that process, we're incubating sort of what the story is and how we tell it. And then when the campaign goes live, so we'll run a campaign for a period of time, we produce, a campaign video that tells their story. Here's why they're the best one of the best in the world. Right. Okay. So I can tell you, for example, that, as a result of our vetting and when we produce videos, it sort of explains the breakdown of this. But with our tree planting organization, for example, $1 donated will grow 4 trees. We like to say grow rather than just plant, because there's great long-term benefit or long-term maturity with their tracker. It's not just planting a tree, it's growing, taking care of the trees, it becomes a tree. So $1 grows 4 trees, removes about 64 pounds of CO2 from the atmosphere per year, results in about 15 pounds of organic produce for an impoverished family in need, and restores about 63.5 square feet of soil per dollar over 4 years. All of those results are achieved within 4 years. The families that participate in this program are out of food scarcity in the first 12 months. The majority of them get out of food scarcity in the first 12 months and raise their income by 400% on average over 4 years. Wow. And are anecdotally usually able to send their kids to school for the first time. Right. There's all the added downline benefits of the economic prosperity that comes from that. That's an acupuncture point of change. You're solving something at more of a root level rather than just greenwashing, we're planting trees. So that's an example. So then we'll produce video content, podcasts, explain sort of why this is so powerful, how it's leveraging nature's technologies and man's technologies to create a very positive outcome and make it easy. Don't make it a white paper to explain this, but make it easy, fun, and enjoyable to donate something as simple as that and observe the process of the good that you've created in the world.
It's inspiring, you think about that, just from $1, and multiple $1 donations, but your $1 can contribute to a family earning an income.
Yep.
That's never been there before, and then passing that on to the next generation for years to come. Why is this a first? Why is it? Obviously, there's multiple efforts around the world. Where's the local leadership that needs to happen? Where's the government leadership that needs to happen? I mean, so many taxes go toward the government and things like that. Obviously, they put it towards something, but I'm not going to get into that. Why don't we have more of a concerted effort at the national level to make it simple for people to understand where their taxes are going, where donations that could be more contributed are going to actual things that matter and can be measured?
It does bring up some interesting thoughts. Every now and then I'll have a conversation where there's the remark of sort of like, it's almost like a tax that I'm opting into that's producing something that I really want to see happen with my tax dollars.
I was thinking, this is almost like a bank, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of go in a tangential direction a little bit. I mean, I think this is some of where the future of kind of liquid democracy, if you're familiar with the concept, can go into. It's the idea of, imagine why can't, whenever there's a proposal by the local government, should we fund this X proposal, that you just get a notification on your phone and says, vote now on this if you'd like to, and you can read about it here. Here's the issue. You just vote now, and you have, instead of waiting every 2 years to vote on something, you're able to vote more in real time. So these tools are coming out. Blockchain's enabling a lot of these tools to come out. This is sort of separate from conversation, but I also ran a futurism conference for 7 years, and so I have my finger on the pulse of a lot of interesting tools that are transforming how people are able to drive and direct the resources to where they want it to go based on their values more in real time. Right. And so some of this will shift, I think, representative leadership a bit, where you can get some of these liquid democracy infrastructures, let's say, in place. You need less to rely on voting every 2 years or every 4 years or someone going and representing you. You can actually participate more in real time with the decisions that are being made about how your taxes might be being used and what they're funding. Yeah.
How big are trust in these donations? Obviously, and what technology such as blockchain could accelerate donations like this? Yeah. I mean, the thing is that we talked about, we kind of before, we don't want to distinguish for-profit and non-profit, but it's very difficult for a lot of people nowadays to trust what's going to happen with a for-profit. even though their intentions may be the best. That's just what it is. It needs to be that nonprofit label. It needs to have transparency back behind it, credit measured, things like that. What is blockchain's role in this, or future technology's role in this?
Well, so it's going to bring inherently a lot more transparency to the process of, in particular, solving, the pain points in the philanthropic space of like, did my donation actually go where they said it was going to go?
5 homes in Haiti, right?
Or did it fund the CEO's yacht?
Right.
And so I think that's just a natural benefit that we're going to get from blockchain as it gets more into the space. We've developed a tool that every member has on their profile called the donation tracker. So it's almost sort of like a FedEx tracker you could imagine for a package, but you're tracking where your donation's going and if it's going to where they said it was going to go, and then if it actually made a difference. So you're able to click each node in that chain of that linear chain of updates to see, when were the trees planted, when did the expedition actually happen, and we have kind of videos and photos and audio clips that we'll put to keep you connected to the story of the impact that's happening from your donation. So this is kind of a first step. It's not on blockchain now. The first 0 to 1 is just helping show people what happened with their donation. The bar is so unfortunately low in the philanthropic space that's a great starting point. And more we'll be integrating a lot of these trust and transparency metrics that are outside of any one central person or organization's control, or you can verify, if the money actually went where it was intended to go.
Seth, what industry do you think this will disrupt the most? I mean, with nonprofits, you mentioned, these are people that are in the garages, they don't really talk about it. So this might be new, this might accelerate and bring in more donations for them. But is there an industry specifically that you can think of that this technology could disrupt potentially?
Well, I mean, I'll just speak for what we're disrupting which is the philanthropic industry, if you want to call it that. And it's really overdue to be completely reimagined. Part of that is our mindset around it, and part of it is bringing more of an innovative, product-oriented mentality actually to social impact. When we go to a store, right? If you go to an Apple store or any store, everything has a price tag on it, right? And you know what you're going to get when you buy it, right? I'm going to pay enough money to get this phone, and I'm going to walk out with this phone that I know has all these benefits in my life. When you donate to social impact, you rarely ever get the experience of I know what my money is going to do, what it's going to accomplish, what the benefit is going to be. It's rarely measurable. It's rarely clear. And not every organization or every vertical, let's say in the social impact space, should work like that, but many of them could and just don't because they're stuck in the philanthropic mentality of not needing to generate more value necessarily than you're spending money on, right? That is a good, that's actually a regenerative principle, right? In ecosystems, a organism that produces more benefit to those around it than it burns itself is a productive member of that ecosystem. Just like a good for-profit company is producing benefit to many people, many other organizations, communities, as a result of what they're creating. And so I believe shifting that, bringing some of that mentality, that regenerative ecosystem sort of approach to the philanthropic space is really critical. And it's part of what we're aiming to innovate, is to help find those organizations that are operating more like an effective product innovation company, but they're applying that to solving the world's biggest challenges. Why should that be? There's almost this weird mentality of, for-profit is one, nonprofit, no one should kind of make money on nonprofit because you shouldn't make money doing good, which sort of implies that you should make money doing not good.
Right.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Right? It's you start finding these weird little Freudian mentalities in the way we think about giving. And what the problem with that is that it starves the philanthropic space of a lot of the people you have on magazine covers. Really great, talented entrepreneurs, innovators who believe they can go make a lot of money and then donate it to something instead of, why couldn't I make money doing something truly meaningful in the world, right? Why can't we figure out making money cleaning up ocean plastic? I'd love to see that day when the Elon Musks the Jeff Bezos, the great innovators, are applying that level of precision and creativity and innovation to solving the things that actually matter the most right now. Not as a byproduct, we made a bunch of money and now we'll throw some money at that, but as the central focus. So again, it's bigger than the for-profit, non-profit conversation. It's about humanity solving challenges, orchestrating resources, and organizing ourselves in effective ways to actually take on the scale of the challenges that we face.
Right, and you mentioned all those real leaders around the world. It's a collective effort that everyone's going to have to pitch in for. Seth, thank you so much for coming on today. Yeah. What is your definition of a real leader?
So there's sort of a mantra in my life that came from a mentor, and it's a quote loosely attributed to Michelangelo, and it's criticized by creating. And I would say that a real leader is one who criticizes by creating, right? Where you have that desire to complain about something that's wrong in the world, and rather than channeling that into criticizing, complaining, whining, real leaders, I believe, channel that into their own innovation and creativity, and apply it to how can I imagine the world without this problem? What does it look like? What doesn't exist yet that could exist that would make this problem obsolete? Not something that anyone would whine about anymore. I think that's leadership in the rawest sense of leading into new territory, showing us things that we didn't even think were possible, and criticizing by creating.
Beautiful. For Seth Blaustein, I'm Kevin Edwards, asking you to go out there, criticize by creating, and always, folks, keep it real. Thanks, Seth.